Welcome, everyone. This is Scale Lab, brought to you by TechLeap. I'm your host, Joe Wilson. This is my co-host, Constantijn van Oranje. Together, we're going to try and deconstruct what it takes to scale a company from the Netherlands out to the rest of the world. So probably it's worthwhile we just tell a little bit about who we are and what we're doing and why we're doing this. So maybe intros. So
Joe, who are you?
Joe Wilson. Background runs, grew up in the US, so American, and if you couldn't tell by the accent. And I had 5 of my own startup companies, ranging over a course of like 15 or 17 years, so that was nonstop. They were all in the US, although 2 of them expanded internationally, and they mixed a bunch of industries. So everything from like your home improvement company with no tech whatsoever, all the way up to an interactive 3D platform. That company was attempted to be purchased by Microsoft, which didn't actually work out, but lo and behold, I would later go to work for Microsoft and stay there for about 14 years, which got me the opportunity to work on multi-billion-dollar businesses. That took us across the world, so we've lived on 3 or 4 different continents and had lots of cultural experience on top of the business experience. A couple years ago, said, hey, want to go back to working with startups full-time as an investor, made that decision, cut ties with all big companies, and started investing and living out our life, the rest of our life, I guess, in the Netherlands.
In the Netherlands.
In the Netherlands, yeah. There's the hook, right?
Yeah.
And you, my friend.
Yes, Constantijn van Oranje. I'm mostly engaged with TechLeap, an organization that has the ambition to really professionalize the whole tech ecosystem in the Netherlands, to try to understand where we can make improvements, what is lacking, but also what's driving it, taking it further. And I think we have an incredible momentum, and we are building on that. And before I was working in government, outside of government. I worked in the private companies consultancy, so the Rand Corporation, Booz Allen Hamilton, and finally at the European Commission. And I had my own business. And I think my strength is to connect people, to look a bit beyond the horizon and see how we can get there in the best possible way.
You've been, I guess in some ways we'll be interviewing each other, because this whole thing is about to help everyone understand why we're doing this and what it's going to be about, because while they're hearing us, it's also all going to be about all the guests that come after this.
Yeah.
But this was in my mind as I was coming in today. You've had somewhat of a fixation, if you will, on startups and scale-ups in the Netherlands for a while. And I was going to maybe we would lead in with the market question, but maybe this is a good transition, which is there must be a reason. Like the country is underserved, we're not represented well enough in the world, but what is it that you feel like that is where you have to spend your time?
Well, it actually started in Europe, so it wasn't typically Dutch. No, I think it's more about the opportunity than that there is a gap. And I do think there is a gap. I think a gap between the incredible opportunity and where we are currently. Yeah. Because I think the Netherlands has everything to be a place where it's really should be really easy to build a business from and expand. And I don't think we're exactly there yet, but we're getting there. So I think what really triggers me is when I see either when policies are not effective, and you can see that there is actually, you can do something about it, or when I see there's something just lacking, and you think, if you just fix a few things, you can get an incredible impact. And I think that's what I see here in the Netherlands: an incredible amount of enthusiasm for entrepreneurship, for technology, a lot of knowledge, an incredible position, good infrastructure. Everything is there to be much bigger than we are.
I have to agree. I'm on any given day, whether I'm like spending time with TechLeap and looking at the companies we work with, or actually like sorting through pitch decks that have come my way, and looking for like seed investment. I'm equally excited and frustrated at the same time, because what I find is that sometimes there are such just incredible ideas, like the idea level that seems to come from the Netherlands versus some other countries that I've lived in or been to is very high. But the ambition level always frustrates me. I always get caught on the, this idea of like, you will build what you design. In a way, if I set out to design a house, I'll probably build a house, maybe a few floors. But if I set out to if I set out to build a skyscraper, I start with a different set of plans. Yeah. And that's something that I have a frustration about, particularly in the Netherlands.
Yeah, no, I think this might be a cultural thing. We like to challenge the existing authority. We always ask why. So there's a very high urge to innovate. So come up with new ideas, new concepts. So we're good architects, good designers in general. And but that's different than building a business.
Yeah.
And so we build a solution, but then to build a business around that, to make a lot of money, it doesn't seem to drive people in the same way as some other places. So it's more about making an impact and the idea. And in your life, you had 5 businesses. Was there in the US we say is different. It's easier to start business or to grow businesses, but then the US is not one country in that sense, right? Silicon Valley is very different than other places. But have you felt that something had supported you or drove you to build a big business, or was it you had 5? Were you as ambitious the first time as you were the last time? What drove you?
2 pieces, I think, to answer that question. One was that there's some sort of, they talk about the American dream and all that. I think that tends to be somewhat cliche. But in a sense,
you don't sleep enough for the American dream. Right?
There's no way, the culture doesn't say, oh, you shouldn't do that, or that's too much, or that's greedy. The American culture in a sense is like, yeah, anything's possible. I think I had an appetite as one. That's sort of me individually, but I think if you want to look systemically, I think there is an expectation of thinking bigger, and you tend to start to associate, like you go through these phases, and as you grow a company to a certain point, you start to hang out with other people who grew companies at that point or bigger, and you're always looking, almost like in athletics, you're always looking to play with or against someone who's better.
So it's people. It is people around you.
And then you realize, and somebody walks in that you didn't know, and it says, oh yeah, you're really doing like 10% of what's possible here. Yeah. Why are you holding yourself back? And then you have to go away and think about that.
So what would you say about TechLeap? How much are we at? 10%? Are we at 50%? Or
at the performance of TechLeap's impact, or what are we asking?
No, in general. You get the task. The task is an open task. You get a bag of money. You get and then you basically get clean sheet to do whatever you could to improve the tech ecosystem in a country.
Yeah, I think TechLeap it's kind of a limited timeline in a way. So I always think of TechLeap as being on a clock, which is good for performance. But I still think it's probably in that 20%, maybe 25% range of what's possible. And part of that is just, I think, engaging and learning and figuring out what to do. I know the leaders in the organization, and I know each of them are far smarter today than they were 6 months ago or a year ago. And they've made much more narrow choices now where they think they can make impact. So if we can keep force multiplying that, say, within another 6 months, we should be getting up to the 100% or at least 80% category. But I think we have to keep saying to ourselves, is it going to make a difference?
That's very abstract. So, because I think it's very hard to imagine how big you can get if you don't have a reference point. Some people can do that. If you're Mr. Elon Musk, you think about putting a man on Mars. That would have been an incomprehensible thought for me. I would have never had that thought.
Right.
Now because he had the thought, other people have similar thoughts.
Sure.
So were it people around you, or should we surround ourselves with people that think about putting people on Mars, that force us to be more ambitious?
I guess if we come to the agreement that ambition is the thing, or at least one of the 3 or 4 things, then I think the answer is yes. We need people who aren't afraid, whose auto reaction is not take it slow, be pragmatic, don't take any risk. Because I think risk is this element that everyone in TechLeap needs to feel like they have the right to ask these organizations that we're working with to take risk. Because I don't see a path to this type of growth that we discuss without the risk piece being there. Take a chance, go bigger, try harder, not just work more, but try to envision bigger to begin with, and then go for that.
But so where does to get to your achievement or to your objective, you need a tactic as well. You need an approach.
Yeah.
So and that is also a defining factor. If your approach gets you a 20% increase, because that's what you understand, then how do you match ambition of like 100% if you don't have the tactics? What drives what?
Yeah, I guess it has to, look, we're going to stay in the abstract for a moment, though. It has to start with what outcome you're trying to go after. It's the whole comment about skyscrapers versus houses. In a sense, like one of my favorite quotes of all time is set your limitations and sure enough, they're yours. So you really own whatever thing that you choose. So if we say we're going to build something that's going to be 5 million or 10 million, then that's what we'll build. But if we say, no, our design point is $500 million or €1 billion company, and that's where we need to go, then we'll tactically approach that with a different set of actions than we will the small things.
So we said one of our more audacious objectives was to increase the total availability of venture capital tenfold. So to go to 10 billion available capital for the Netherlands on an annual basis. And we would achieve that in 4 years. That sounded quite ambitious. We're getting. We're kind of slowly. I hope this is a bit of an exponential thing, so that it's not linear. So we have now increased it by maybe 500 million, which is considerable, but that's not enough if we want to get to our objective.
No.
But we kind of are pulling the levers that we think we can pull.
But I guess it all starts with the ideas. Like, what are the companies? I think money finds its way to... the companies who have made it that we discussed, like you think about... you mentioned Adyen in a way with Peter. I think of even Mendix or Elastic or some of the, some that sort of fit into that group. And I'm always leaning to the really tech companies, like Elastic for me is a favorite. Like, they money found them, right? It found them because they were good and because their dreams were big enough and their model was infinitely, in a sense, scalable. So the money found them. And I think part of your strategy on capital has to be the magnet strategy, which is we will create something that attracts it. Yeah. Not just,
of course,
the idea. Look, I want to maybe switch a little bit. We talk about the market. Maybe think about what holds it back. Tech Leap is one thing, and we could probably deconstruct Tech Leap a few different ways.
We'll do that privately.
Yeah, we can do that. But I'm thinking, like, the market itself, you've again, obviously been in this deeper than I have. I have my external observations as living here for a few years. What do you think is holding it back? What do you think is preventing, either companies are not able to scale, let's say by no fault of their own, or there's something outside of cultural or mindset, if we put that one off to the side since we talked about it. What other things do you see?
Well, linked to cultural mindset is that we have a small market. So somewhere in the mindset you have to immediately introduce that you're building a product or you're developing a product, you're building a business that is goes beyond the boundaries of the Netherlands. But that's a mindset too, I think. Then there are some very kind of objective criteria. We have our investment is smaller A rounds. There's a shortage of early stage capital. There are a number of things where if you just compare us to other ecosystems, then we don't have a favorable outcome. Other thing is talent. I think what we have at least identified is that it takes about 3 times as much time to fill a programmer or a developer role in the Netherlands than it takes in the UK. It's like 60 days versus 21 or something. So
really,
that's,
versus the UK, that's surprising me because I think of
London.
them as
it's London. Yeah, so
their computer science numbers and academia is going down every year too. But like,
I don't know exactly what drives it, but it is and we do have the highest number of per capita of developers, for instance, in Amsterdam. So that's really good. I think it's because there's now quite a concentration of technology companies, and many of the we have quite a lot of multinational companies, and they're all transforming to digital as well. So they are also hiring a lot of these people. So sure. I think there must be a number of reasons why this is happening. But we have a problem in filling those jobs. So that's one. And 2, it's the depth of IT knowledge. That might be something just in terms of education, also maybe pay to compete with the kind of skills that a Google can deploy or Microsoft. And
well, yeah, it's interesting because if you're a single person who's like excellent at programming, can get a job programming most places you want, like you can control your cost of living and you can go to places that will pay you really well versus what you would spend to live. And so suddenly your offers are almost clear for you.
Well, I think we haven't done in the Netherlands. We haven't done a lot to attract talent. So we have programs to attract businesses and stuff. But if, in fact, Amsterdam and the Netherlands in general is ranked quite highly for livability, and people do want to come here. But we didn't ever do kind of wide scale acquisition. So, like for instance, Switzerland has done with their Swiss Next program and others. I think France is also quite good at this. And there's a certain hesitant there. So it's like you're bringing in people that are competing with the local labor market, which that, in my view, that's not the case. In fact, we are making our local labor pool more competitive, and we're bringing in, if you bring in talent from abroad, then you're enriching it through diversity and bringing new insights and all that. So I think it's really important that we do that, and we should do much more of that because we're a small market. And from here, if you want to build the next Shells and Philipses of this world, you'll have an oversized company for a very small country, and these companies will have to work internationally, and that's what we want from the next generation of tech companies too, and definitely. They will attract international talent, and we should do more of that. So those talent and money are the two things that are a challenge, and we already mentioned the mindset and culture. Yeah. But what did you see as as some of the things? What did you bump into? Yeah,
we mentioned the mindset and culture. I like you, to your answer, I struggle to find this massively easily available pool of what I think of as like just programming talent. I find that the iconic startups that we think of in the world, or like the big success stories of the unicorns, are often started quite obviously at a technical level. Somebody had an idea, they built a thing, it was something, and then it grew, and then other people got involved. But oftentimes, a lot of these things start with programmers. And so, the more programmers, the more talented programmers you can bring to one place, I think the number of ideas. And it's not because a business person doesn't have as many good ideas as a programmer. It's just that a programmer has a likelihood of sort of going home at night and trying to make that thing, whereas a business person probably goes to try to find a programmer. In a sense. So I find that one is the sea of programmers, a sea of computer science, people that I can find in the US. Even I spent a lot of time in the central part of the US living in Colorado, but man, we never had a problem hiring programmers.
So actually you'd expect more to come out of Eastern Europe, where you have many programmers, and Poland, even Ukraine and these places.
Well, there's quite a lot of companies that come out of Eastern Europe that then get repackaged as American companies. What do we see coming out of the Netherlands? Like, what kind of companies are we seeing that we think show great promise? And I don't even mean the companies themselves, but maybe the industries, because you have quite a variety. Whereas I think of the U.S. and you think of it getting its iconic, sort of startup badge right now for like very B2B, B2C, SaaS-based type companies.
Yeah.
I mean, the Netherlands is like, I think there's a whole component of deep science. I think there's, manufacturing in some elements. I mean, what do you think in terms of the strength of industries that you could play off of here?
Well, I think the Netherlands is definitely not specialized. That's probably one of the challenges, because we might be too small not to be specialized and too big not to be diverse. So we're a bit caught in the middle. We have traditionally, this is also based on universities, a lot of biotech, but biotech basically mostly feeding into large pharma without building it ourselves. So we have had pharma, we have Galapagos, and we used to have Organon and others, but it's mostly now developing a molecule and then having a business or a startup that basically is a vehicle to take a development through clinical trials and then sell it off to a big pharma company. So that's
like a feeder system.
It's a feeder system, but it works well, and the universities are well aligned, and so that works really well. And then you have regional differences. For instance, in the south and the east, but mostly the south, you have megatronica, so building really high precision machinery. ASML obviously is one of the
megatronica.
One of the big complex manufacturing. And super specialized. I would say the challenge there is the business model. So building machines is not super scalable.
Must be a reasonably high cost of labor here as well.
Yeah, but as long as if it's so scientific, and it's so specific, then there are high margins. But you're also very dependent because you sell one machine, for a lot of money. If you don't sell the machine, then you're suddenly into big troubles. So you would really want more kind of business acumen and business model kind of innovation in those kind of markets. So we're seeing additive industry, so the 3D printing, we're seeing semiconductor industry, medtech industry, robotics, all that kind of stuff. So a lot of enthusiasm on the product development side, less so in building big companies. So I guess that's many of the people that you were mentioning before is kind of it's not only about building an incredible robot, but it's building a business around the robot, and then also asking you the question: I'm going to make one.
Or imagining the world needs this robot, and how do we get it to them? This idea that it should be. It shouldn't. This isn't the Dutch market's not the market.
No, and they maybe not need this robot for that because that's what you thought, and maybe they want it in another way, or maybe there is a part of the value that you're creating that you have overlooked that is much more valuable in the market than the robot. And these conversations we have to have more. I think it's already improving, but we're typically very keen on the science and all the incredible potential that the product has. We're less keen on that the potential is actually monetized. And I think there might be a difference in some countries where monetization and making a lot of money is a really cool thing, and you find also investors that'll be on your back, to make sure that you hit your milestones and that you're going towards an IPO. That drive has been much less here, and we're trying to bring that in, not because it's because we are kind of perverse capitalists that want this, but we think, or at least I'm deeply convinced that anyone who builds a good product that can have a potentially beneficial outcome or output or an impact on society, on the environment, or all these kind of things, do something good, is going to do it much better if you do it at scale. So scaling is really important factor.
We're aligned there. It's one of those things that I can't. This is maybe just again my evolution to the point that I'm at right now is like, I don't understand. While if I can create it and I believe it's going to be impactful, why wouldn't automatically go, everybody should have this. We need to get it to, this should be a global thing. The idea that it would be impactful, but if it's only impactful to a small audience, I don't feel like that's impact to me. I want it to be impactful for those maximum audiences possible. And therefore my default position in the design point is, okay, minimum of 25 countries if we're going to do something. And so what do we need to do that? That's kind of where it starts. If my motivation is impact, why wouldn't it be more impact is better?
And so you need people around you that also kind of hold up a mirror and say, what is your trajectory? Where do you want to go? Where do you think you're going in 1 to 5 years' time when you're going this way? Or are you going to make that pivot? And then find that there is some people also supporting you on that path, because that might be a very new avenue for you. And I find that we should do more, and that this is maybe a part of a role that TechLeap can play, but also other people, in asking those hard questions and holding up the mirror to people that have been rewarded already, that have done incredible stuff and that are maybe do have the big ideas, but not the big ideas how to get to the market. And and those are very valuable advisors, and we see
if there's
more
a gap.
Of
I would say that there is an honesty gap.
Yeah.
In a sense, I think with my time.
Can you elaborate on the honesty gap?
Sure,
we can do a whole chapter on the honesty gap.
Because I think that in my time with the companies that I've been engaged with here in the Netherlands, and most of my investments are outside of the country, not on purpose. It was just where I was doing business. But then I started working with companies in the Netherlands, and I find that there is like you said, there's sort of a hugging community that says you're great and it looks good and it's going well and keep going and keep going. And even on different levels, like that means someone gave you money maybe or invested or you organically grew. But there seems to be fewer people that are willing just to be like, look, bottom line, the maximum you're ever going to go to with this is like maybe this size. And if that's your goal, fine. But if you think you're going to be $1 billion company or a $500 million company, you don't have the product and you don't have the go-to-market that will ever get you there. So being brutally honest and open, and I find that maybe that's a cultural comment, because like you don't get to exist in the U.S. without sort of continuously accepting the criticism and the growth moments that make you sort of reflect on what you're doing. Here, I don't find those to be as frequent, and I find myself, sometimes again when I'm giving feedback to the companies through the Tech Lead program, you can see some of them are like a little too thin-skinned on hard feedback. They're not used to someone being like, I just don't buy it. Like, convince me why this is going to make it, because I'm looking at logic and it says no. So let's talk this through. And they seem a little more like, well, of course.
I think it is more nuanced, because the person who provides that feedback should have the credibility to give it.
Yeah.
So if you emerge from an environment where everybody says do normal and feet on the ground, don't think big, there's a lot of criticism you're already getting, but it's not on the business, and it's not the criticism that helps you grow. It's the criticism that holds you back. So I assume this. I'm thinking this up as we're going along, but I assume that people are also I think in the tech community are cheering on people, because you try to get them, to release them from this environment of just doe maar gewoon, dan doe je gek genoeg, as we're saying. Just be normal and then you're crazy enough. To get them to lift off. Then obviously you need people that are very honest about saying, okay, now you are flying. Let's build a plane. But it's first getting out of the blocks, and
so you mean free from the earth first.
Yeah, first you have to kind of be flying, and then you put the engines on, but then somebody should tell you, okay, now you are kind of distinguished yourself, and you are now an entrepreneur. But now if you want to grow big, you're now competing with these are the rules for the big game, and there are very few people that have been there and that can take on a serious coaching or mentoring role, that can take these companies and these entrepreneurs to that next level. And I think, and I really hope, that companies like Adyen now, they've grown and they're shedding some of their expertise, and Uber in Amsterdam, that when their options came in, that there are people like Jelle and others that are now kind of actually actively engaging in the ecosystem, and they are the ones that that do have that understanding.
Well, let's just say if they're listening.
Yes.
We think there might be a moral imperative on this particular company. Like this is a thing that you have to give.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to give it the value, you're already underestimating the value of how much is needed.
Yeah. So I think that also this podcast should really contribute to that.
Yeah.
It should contribute that kind of insight. And if we can capture the insight of why some of those entrepreneurs have been successful, why they have actually managed to not only release the blocks, but get in flight, and put some incredible engines on the plane as they were flying, and then and pivoting to where they currently are, and sharing that information, sharing that knowledge, that's something very valuable.
Yeah, I think this. Let's say that our attempt.
Yeah, that's our attempt.
Is to unlock that. Is to unblock and unlock, but like get people in there who have succeeded either because of or in spite of the ecosystem that they grew up in. Maybe they had to break free, maybe they had to go around things, whatever it is. But we're going to learn why and what. Maybe find the kind of key moments that made the difference. Maybe the key people that made the difference. Was it money? Was it not? Was it mindset? Was it just dogged determination? I don't know which. We'll find out. It'll be different, I think, by different person. Mm-hmm. Some of them will be up beyond that edge. Some will probably still be on the up curve. But that's the idea. Let's get them in. Let's quit guessing a little bit, and let's get it straight from the horse's mouth, as we would say.
Yeah, and then with brutal honesty.
But that's what it's got to be. Like, I don't think that we can do this in any sort of prepackaged, manufactured way. I think it has to be like, what do you think? Tell me what it was. Are you serious? Like, just freaking tell me the truth here. What happened?
Okay, Joe, this is a test. You be brutally honest, What would you give me advice? Be brutally honest.
On which topic would you like advice?
On
personal, professional. I'm an expert on anything. Just ask me.
On how to, in the next 2.5 years that we have left, how to maximize output of Tech Lead.
Yeah. So I think there are 3 pieces, and I always believe in every answer I give on this. There's always like 3 pieces. One is like crystal freaking clear on the end goal. Why is it here? What does it want to achieve? And everybody has to understand it as simple as possible. Thing number 1. Thing number 2 is an operational component. Like full transparency, make sure everything in the company, in the organization, what we said we were going to do, we've done it. How are we tracking towards it? It's like we run these things in the U.S. I'm sure you have them here. They're called telethons. You try to raise money, and you always are watching as the money comes in. Mm-hmm. Like every hour or day, as it gets better,
Metrics.
better. Yeah, but it's like I just want to see the progress because I want to, and I think it has to be crazy tangible. And number 3 is, so I got the picture, we got the operations, and I think just make sure that we've got actionable pragmatics in between steps. Like just know between here and there, there's 10 steps working back from the big vision. Let's just make sure we're going to 1, 2, 3 along the way. Those are like, the last 2 are somewhat operational, but the first one is like the picture has to be super clear. What do you want to achieve? What do you want it to be? Is it 100, is it 1,000 unicorns? Is it, X number of companies at this value? Is it really just about the number of jobs and the growth in the economy? Because fundamentally, TechLeap has to be here as a means to another end, right? And the end is something which is about the growth and the presence of the Dutch market and the Dutch nation on the world stage. And I feel like TechLeap can play a role to make sure that continues to grow. But I feel like we're, what did I say, 25%. In terms of where we are so far.
Okay, thanks.
All right, I think I should reverse that question and say, all right, you've seen me operate in this market and with companies and things like that, like brutal, honest, and feedback. Where can I be more useful than just like walking around talking to companies and being semi-bitchy some of the time?
I think... you actually said it yourself. The brutal honesty, I think, is really valuable. So, due diligence based on where the company is, where it can go. Is it organized for scale? And I really wonder how to scale you, so that more companies get that kind of feedback and then we need to package it in a kind of constructive way, because there might be that cultural component, So
in a way that they will hear it and act on it. It's important,
so now
translate it.
Yeah, because now we have to bring people companies into the program, and once you got them in the program, you can do this because there's a kind of a trust relationship. But you would want this to happen at much bigger scale. So how can we do that? How can we do that for a different set of companies? My biggest challenge, I think, is how to get the deep tech, high tech companies that are more capital intense, that might still come out of that kind of more old framework or frame of thinking. How do we get those to scale in a similar way? Yeah. That's not brutally honest, though. It's still honest. It's not. I don't know. It's not brutally honest. It's honest.
It didn't hurt.
It didn't hurt you yet.
I'm waiting for the punch.
Okay, I'll try. Yeah, exactly. I have to give you a punch. Start investing in the Netherlands. Damn it.
I have a couple seed investments in the Netherlands, so that's fair.
Good.
That's totally fair point, though, right?
Good. No. I mean, I think you
learn Dutch. There's a punch.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Yeah, well, I think that's actually something that we are always kind of fighting. We have an international organization. We have a lot of non-Dutch staff, non-Dutch speaking, and we still we're always kind of hover between the two. We start in Dutch, then we switch to English, and we go back and forth, and we have both languages. So I guess, yes, to perform well in our organization, you still have to have both. And then once you do that, you can...
Yeah, the language is somewhat of a window into the culture, I think. And if I want to really succeed in what I'm trying to... So you know me well enough to know that my whole goal here is impact. Like, can we impact the market? Can we make a difference? If I stop working with you guys in a couple of years, can I look back and be like, wow, okay, something is different now. I had a little bit of a play in that. That's the high value for me. It's not, again, maybe I'm more Dutch, so it's not the money so much now because I'm in a different place in life, but I don't want to invest time and energy in something and not have it be something better when I leave. And if it takes learning Dutch to make that happen, then I'm just gonna have to take it on. It's that simple. Maybe it's a good time to sort of start wrapping up. I think we've now covered the market, we've covered this, but let's go back to the basics. Like, this podcast is about helping tech companies in the Netherlands figure out what it means to scale by showing them ones who have.
Yep.
And when you think about the types of personalities or things that we're going to be here, without mentioning names, because I don't know all who's confirmed and who hasn't yet on the first episode, but like, what do you want to add to that, and what do you want to sort of bring into our finality here? What would you final comments?
Yeah, this podcast should also. I hope it will be something that I'm actually experiencing nearly every day, because I'm working with people that do remarkable things and are building products, are developing technologies, are deep into science, and have built companies that are exceptional and that are performing in an international pace. And I've been going throughout Europe, through different countries. But also in beyond Europe, in Asia and the US, and every time you meet people that have done in a relatively short period of time have built these incredible companies, and so you see it is actually possible. And I sometimes find that I feel a bit as an imposter, because I have not built a big company like that, but I have seen it, and I know it's possible, and I do recognize it when people have something that they could actually be that person, but. And I've wondered, can I unveil that for them? Because I'm not a tech entrepreneur, and I feel a bit hypocritical in saying, you could go so much faster. So really, that this podcast, I hope, bring to the air some of our best and brightest entrepreneurs from the Netherlands, understand where they made a difference, what personal sacrifice they made, what choices they made, what came on their path, how they reacted. And then that way, one, be an inspiration, but maybe also provide input for TechLeap to understand much better what levers we have or need to pull to have many more of these entrepreneurs, what it is that they would have liked to excel from the Netherlands, and why they maybe didn't, why they had to go abroad, and what they found there, and what experience they have, and try to bring them back into a more coherent strategy to really excel the Dutch startup ecosystem.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to put it. Not a lot to add. Let's just sort of round it up on, for anybody who's listening to this, when we put it out there, we both think that everything is possible. We both think, or we wouldn't be here spending time on this, that, there is ability to grow really impactful, large, industries and companies out of the Netherlands, and we just want to see that happen at a faster pace. And maybe this is a small way of helping that go forward. So we'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Constantijn.
Thank you for listening to The Scale Lab, a podcast brought to you by TechLeap. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please share it on your network via social media and give us your feedback. See you on the next episode.